Good morning, FBC, and welcome to your daily Bible reading. Today we are in Leviticus 13 and Matthew chapter 26, verses 26 through 50. And there in Leviticus chapter 13, it says, "Then the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, When a man has on the skin of his body a swelling or a scab or a bright spot, and it becomes an infection of leprosy on the skin of his body, then he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons the priests. The priest shall look at the mark on the skin of the body, and if the hair in the infection has turned white, and the infection appears to be deeper than the skin of his body, it is an infection of leprosy. When the priest has looked at him, he shall pronounce him unclean. But if the bright spot is white on the skin of his body, and it does not appear to be deeper than the skin, and the hair on it has not turned white, then the priest shall isolate him who has the infection for 7 days. The priest shall look at him on the seventh day, and if in his eyes the infection has not changed, and the infection has not spread on the skin, then the priest shall isolate him for 7 more days. The priest shall look at him again on the seventh day, and if the infection has faded, and the mark has not spread on the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is only a scab, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scab spreads farther on the skin, after he has shown himself to the priest for his cleansing, he shall appear again to the priest. The priest shall look. If the scab has spread on the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is leprosy. When the infection of leprosy is on a man, then he shall be brought to the priest. The priest shall then look, and if there is a white swelling in the skin, and it has turned the hair white, and there is quick raw flesh in the swelling, it is a chronic leprosy on the skin of his body, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. He shall not isolate him, for he is unclean. If the leprosy breaks out farther on the skin, and leprosy covers all the skin of him who has the infection from his head even to his feet, as far as the priest can see, then the priest shall look, and behold, if the leprosy has covered all his body, he shall pronounce him clean him who has the infection. It is all turned white, and he is clean. But whenever raw flesh appears on him, he shall be unclean. The priest shall look at the raw flesh, and he shall pronounce him unclean. The raw flesh is unclean, it is leprosy. Or if the raw flesh turns again and is changed to white, then he shall come to the priest. And the priest shall look at him, and behold, if the infection has turned to white, then the priest shall pronounce clean him who has the infection. He is clean. When the body has a boil on its skin, and it is healed, and in the place of the boil there is a white swelling or a reddish-white bright spot, then it shall be shown to the priest. And the priest shall look, and behold, if it appears to be lower than the skin, and the hair on it has turned white, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the infection of leprosy. It is broken out in the boil. But if the priest looks at it, and behold, there are no white hairs in it, and it is not lower than the skin, and is faded, then the priest shall isolate him for 7 days. And if it spreads farther on the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an infection. But if the bright spot remains in its place and does not spread, it is only the scar of the boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or if the body sustains in its skin a burn by fire, and the raw flesh of the burn becomes a bright spot, reddish white or white, then the priest shall look at it, and if the hair in the bright spot is turned white, and it appears to be deeper than the skin, it is leprosy. It is broken out in the burn. Therefore the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an infection of leprosy. But if the priest looks at it, and indeed there is no white hair in the bright spot, and it is no deeper than the skin, but is dim, then the priest shall isolate him for 7 days. And the priest shall look at him on the seventh day. If it spreads further in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an infection of leprosy. But if the bright spot remains in its place, and is not spread in the skin, but is dim, it is a swelling from the burn. And the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is only the scar of the burn. Now if a man or woman has an infection on the head or on the beard, then the priest shall look at the infection, and if it appears to be deeper than the skin, and there is thin yellowish hair in it, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a scale. It is leprosy of the head or of the beard. But if the priest looks at the infection of the scale, and indeed it appears to be no deeper than the skin, and there is no black hair in it, then the priest shall isolate the person with the scaly infection for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall look at the infection. If the scale is not spread, and no yellowish hair is grown in it, and the appearance of the scale is no deeper than the skin, then he shall shave himself, but he shall not shave the scale. And the priest shall isolate the person with the scale 7 more days. And on the seventh day, the priest shall look at the scale. And if the scale has not spread in the skin, and it appears to be no deeper than the skin, the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scale spreads further in the skin after his cleaning, then the priest shall look at him. And if the scale is spread in the skin, the priest need not seek for the yellowish hair. He is unclean. If in his side the scale has remained, however, and black hair has grown in it, and the scale is healed, he is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. When a man or woman has bright spots on the skin of the body, even white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and if the bright spots on the skin of their bodies are a faint white, it is eczema that is broken out of the skin. He is clean. Now, if a man loses the hair of his head, he is bald, he is clean. If his head becomes bald at the front and sides, he is bald on the forehead, he is clean. But if on the bald head or on the bald forehead there occurs a reddish white infection, then is leprosy breaking out on his bald head or on his bald forehead. Then the priest shall look at him, and if the swelling of the infection is reddish white on his bald head or on his bald forehead, like the appearance of leprosy in the skin of the body, he is a leprous man, he is unclean. The priest shall surely pronounce him unclean, his infection is on his head. As for the leper who has the infection, his clothes shall be torn, and the hair of his head shall be uncovered, and he shall cover his mustache and cry, unclean, unclean. He shall remain unclean all the days during which he has the infection. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. When a garment has the mark of leprosy in it, whether it is a wool garment or a linen garment, whether in warp or woof, of linen or of wool, whether it leather or in any article made of leather, if the mark is greenish or reddish in the garment or in the leather, or in the warp or in the woof, or in any article of leather, it is a leprous mark and shall be shown to the priest. Then the priest shall look at the mark and shall quarantine the article with the mark for 7 days. He shall then look at the mark on the 7th day. If the mark is spread in the garment, whether in the warp or in the woof or in the leather, whatever the purpose for which the leather is used, the mark is a leprous malignancy. It is unclean. So he shall burn the garment, whether the warp or in the woof, in wool or in linen or in any article of leather in which the mark occurs, for it is a leprous malignancy. It shall be burned in the fire. But if the priest shall look, and indeed the mark is not spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof or in any article of leather, then the priest shall order them to wash the thing in which the mark occurs, and he shall quarantine it for 7 more days. After the article with the mark has been washed, the priest shall again look, and if the mark is not changed in its appearance, even though the mark is not spread, it is unclean. You shall burn it in the fire, whether in eating away has produced barrenness on the top or on the front of it. Then if the priest looks, and if the mark is faded after it has been washed, then he shall tear it out of the garment and out of the leather, whether from the warp or from the woof. And if it appears again in the garment, whether in the warp or in the woof or in any article of leather, it is an outbreak. The article with the mark shall be burned in the fire. The garment, whether the warp or the woof or any article of leather from which the mark is departed, when you washed it, it shall be washed a second time, and it will be clean. This is the law for the mark of leprosy in a garment of wool or linen, whether in the warp or in the woof or in any article of leather, or for pronouncing it clean or unclean. And now we turn to Matthew chapter 26. And there in verse 26 it says, while they were eating, Jesus took some bread, and after a blessing he broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, take, eat, this is my body. And when he had taken a cup and given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. After singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, you will all fall away because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike down the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go ahead of you to Galilee. But Peter said to him, even though all may fall away because of you, I will never fall away. Jesus said to him, truly I say to you, that this very night before a rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you. All the disciples said the same thing too. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and said to his disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and began to be grieved and distressed. Then he said to them, my soul is deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and keep watch with me. And he went a little beyond them and fell on his face and prayed, saying, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and said to Peter, so you men could not keep watch with me for 1 hour? Keep watching and praying that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away again a second time and prayed, saying, my Father, if this cannot pass away unless I drink it, your will be done. Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them again and went away and prayed a third time, saying the same thing once more. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. Behold, the one who betrays me is at hand. While he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, came up, accompanied by a large crowd with swords and clubs. who came from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now he who was betraying him gave them a sign, saying, "Whomever I kiss, he is the one. Seize him." Immediately Judas went to Jesus and said, "Hail, Rabbi," and kissed him. And Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you have come for." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and seized him. As we come to this heartbreaking part of the gospel, as we read here, is all the things that go on. And what I'm reminded of for us this morning, the thing that we need to learn and hold on to, is that we need to be careful not to boast in our faithfulness to God, not to brag about what we will accomplish or what we will do. Because Peter, of course, when Jesus tells them what's going to happen, Peter says, "Even if I have to die with you, I won't deny you." Because Peter let his pride get in the way, right? Peter says, "I'm not going to fall away. Even if everybody else does, I'm still going to be there, Jesus." And Jesus tells him, You're gonna deny me 3 times tonight, Peter." And Peter said, "No, even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you." A few minutes later, a couple of hours later, whatever, he just leaves Peter and James and John to pray. And he comes back and they're asleep. He wakes them up and tells them to keep watching. He even says the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And he comes back again and they are asleep. And then he came back and he said, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand. The Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners." It's so easy for us to say the things that we're going to do. It's harder to do the things that we say sometimes. Peter, I have no doubt that Peter absolutely meant what he said when he said, "Jesus, I will not walk away from you." He absolutely meant that. But yet, just a few minutes later, a few hours later, he found out just how hard it is to be consistent, because he couldn't even keep watch while Jesus prayed. We, as individuals today, need to make sure that we don't make grandiose statements about who we are going to be and about what we will do for God. Rather, we should just do what we're going to do and allow Jesus to give us whatever reward he's going to give us. We shouldn't make promises to God that we can't keep. Our only promise to God should be to try to follow him, not to be perfect, not to stand against all odds. Those things we hope we can do, but we can't know for sure. We cannot be people who allow our pride to affect our relationship with Jesus. That's what happened with Peter. He let his pride stand in the way of what he could do, because he just knew that he was the man. So often we do that and we find ourselves falling flat on our face. We cannot be the people that make promises to God that we don't keep, or make grandiose statements to those around us, for those around us to hear, that may bring a bad witness upon Jesus. We have to be people who are consistent in our walk of faith. Let's pray. Father God, we come to you right now and we thank you, we praise you for your blessings. Father, we ask right now that you would, Father, make us people who aren't bragging, who aren't prideful, who aren't claiming great big things, Father, but just simply that we could walk humbly with you, not promising things that we cannot keep up with, not making grandiose statements for others to hear. Father, just us walking with you in humility, allowing you to lead. Father, we thank you and we praise you. We ask all these things in the name of your Son, Jesus, and for his sake. Amen. All right, I do have a prayer request this morning. I have done something to my left knee. The skin, for lack of a better word, I feel like the skin on the inside of my left knee hurts whenever I do certain things. Like if I'm down on my knee or I put too much pressure on it. It's almost a burning kind of sharp pain. Maybe bursitis from what I'm looking at. I'm not sure. Hopefully, I can get to the doctor this week and find out. But just pray for my knee if you would today and in the coming days. Be blessed today as you seek to follow Him.